Hey guys, I hope you're all doing alright and welcome back to the B1N4G4 channel and welcome once again to the Racing Line podcast, today for a review of the 2021 Formula 1 British Grand Prix. And I'm joined once again by Sir Sid. Say hello.
Hello.
Yes, and we're here to give you a rundown of what happened during that Grand Prix and how hectic it was. So, start with our general opinion on what happened. Sir, I'll just start with you.
So, the race as a whole, besides certain parts, it was honestly quite interesting as a whole. We saw action at the start, action at the end, then the odd moments in the middle. So, honestly, I found the Grand Prix quite interesting and the race weekend as a whole quite interesting.
Yeah, of course, they were experimenting with the sprint qualifying formats, which I gotta say, it actually worked. It actually work quite well. 17 lap race. It didn't have all the action of the full 52 laps. It was short, snappy, and it was insane. I feel like it was quite successful. I definitely like to see more of that in the future. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it was also a very good idea. Obviously, the first time they've used it, and yeah, as you were saying, I think it worked quite well. And as you said as well, I think they should definitely use this for other races and maybe take this up as a full-time thing for every Grand Prix.
But we'll get back to the sprint. Is it called the sprint qualifying race?
It's called sprint qualifying, even though it's a race, which does confuse me as well.
Yeah, so get back to the sprint qualifying race thing later. But for now, let's start off with qualifying. So obviously the standout that time was George Russell. Mega lap. Q3 again. It's Mr. Saturday. There's nothing more to say really. What do you think?
Just want to say first of all, technically Mr. Friday, but okay, yeah, we'll go along with that. Yeah, of course, the second week in a row he's managed to get into Q3, which, seeing the fact where Latifi's putting the car and then seeing where Russell's putting the car is just amazing. How much he's been able to do in that relatively slow Williams.
If he doesn't get the call up to Mercedes next year, I will have a seizure. Because Toto Wolff, it's just obvious. He's putting that car literally multiverses beyond where it should be. Which, it's just astonishing. Yes, he's probably more used to the car than Latifi, but it takes a fair amount of talent. It takes another Max Verstappen to drag that car up the field. That's quite amazing. Also in Q3 was Daniel Ricciardo for the first time in a while. That's quite happy to see. Obviously, he should be aiming to get there on a regular basis, but the fact that he couldn't for a while now, well, it's quite sad for all the fans, but he got there today. Not today, Friday. He got there on Friday, which is good to see. And I feel like that also definitely impacted his race result. Don't you think so?
Yeah, I think so, and I think he should be getting the car there, as you said. He should be getting it up there with Lando. Of course, we know how experienced Daniel is and how good he really can do. And yeah, I think it's just going to be a morale boost for him, essentially. And I hope that this is the start of maybe just a Q3 streak for him.
Yeah, and it's clear that Ricciardo's race pace, the McLaren is much better than quali, so maybe he's been loving the sprint qualifying format because that allows him to, well, obviously he has pretty good race pace, so perhaps he can get higher up the order for Sunday's race, which I think we saw because on Sunday he ended up getting pitches quite a standout result. It's only one place behind Norris, which is quite it's quite an improvement from last time. Where I mean, you look at Monaco, where Norris ended up humiliating me. So, yeah. Good. Lewis Hamilton ended up taking the pole from Max Verstappen, which, I mean, Roger, what do you have to say about that?
I mean, yeah, when you look at it, it was a good lap. Obviously, people are saying like the Red Bull up on pole in front of all the fans that he had cheering him on. So, yeah, I think it was just like the perfect lap.
That sort of wraps it up for qualifying. Now onto the sprint qualifying, which everyone was looking forward to. It was 17 laps. Well, I mean, none of the fans really knew what to expect, and I feel like it delivered. I mean, first major event rather was Sergio Perez spinning out as he getting onto the back straight. That definitely hindered his whole race weekend because he was in quite a lofty position and was looking like on course to starting the race, like in a position where he could challenge for podiums. Maybe the win would be a bit too much, but you never know. Yeah, but then he had a big spin which sent him tumbling down. So what do you have to say about that?
Yeah, of course, like it was quite a big spin. Looking at it, I think maybe a combination of getting on the power too early and a combination of just riding the curb a bit too much sent him spinning into the gravel and then into the grass. Surprisingly, if you look at it, it was I'm guessing centimeters from putting it into the wall, which was an amazing save from him. But yeah, that, as you said, it just ruined his whole race weekend, and even though he's known for his comeback drives, he unfortunately couldn't do that on Sunday's Grand Prix.
Yeah, I feel like Perez could have done a lot better. I mean, following this weekend, he's tumbled down in the championship to P5 behind both Lando Norris and Valtteri Bottas, which of course will be kicking himself for it, but I think he'll come back. Think so?
Yeah, I think he can definitely come back. You know, considering the fact he got a win so early in the season, he just needs he doesn't really need wins. If he just gets like consistent thirds, maybe the odd second place, I think he can definitely get back up to where he was.
Yeah. Well, I mean, aside from that, sprint race, I mean, there wasn't a lot going on really. I mean, the opening lap, Verstappen and Hamilton had a bit of a tussle, which was great to see, but in the end, Verstappen came out on top to win from Hamilton. I was quite expected. Verstappen I think he got the better start. Like, what do you think?
Again, as you said, he got the better start. You know, the first phase of the start, if you will, was much better for Verstappen, considering the fact they were on the same tyre as well. Then think that Bottas behind, who's in P3, was starting on the soft. So that was honestly quite a disappointing Grand Prix, or like a disappointing start for him, considering the fact he was on the soft. He might have wanted to get back up a bit. But yeah, that's beside the point. And yeah, Verstappen just did a really good job to get a good reaction of the lights and then control the whole sprint qualifying from there.
Yeah. Well, now let's move on to the race. And, well, big incident. I mean, I think all the fans were kind of waiting for this, but Verstappen and Hamilton come together, putting Verstappen out of the race. Ow. Like, just words, Siraj.
Yeah, it was an absolutely massive crash, and as Horner said, it's like one of the quickest corners on the calendar. Normally it's a flat out corner, a flat out right-hander. Honestly, like if you look back at it, Hamilton just like put his car there, tried to make a move, and yeah, he was given a penalty. I don't think he should have done that, honestly, and it was a massive crash. Verstappen into the wall at such speed, and it's good to just see that he was all okay afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, the contact itself was a pretty small tap. I mean, it just looked like extreme damage mode on the F1 game. And because, like you said, they're coming in at so much speed, I feel like that's why, like, Verstappen's tire came off and he was sent, like, just complete, like a torpedo straight into the wall. Yeah, it's a good thing he was alright. I mean, the race has to be red flags and he had to be sent to hospital as a precaution. So it was actually a pretty good one. And yeah, it's always good to see that Verstappen's out of the car and he's alright. Obviously this was joy for Hamilton. I mean, yes, he had a 10-second penalty, but I mean, he had the opportunity to recover sort of the 30-something point deficit he had to Verstappen, and I feel like he did just that. Despite having the penalty, the person who really capitalized from this, in my opinion, was Charles Leclerc, who, I mean, I don't know if you saw, but he just slips out the inside of Hamilton following that, like straight after that crash. And got away with it, and he ended up leading the race for quite some time. What do you have to say to that?
Yeah, of course, quite clever from Leclerc to see that Hamilton Verstappen crashed, and he just, as you said, slipped up the inside of Hamilton, and then straight after he overtook Hamilton, the yellow flags came out, and then the eventual red flag, and then on the restart, Leclerc managed to get a good start and just control the race from there till lap 50 for Hamilton eventually.
Yeah, do you think Leclerc could have gone to win that?
Honestly, from the start it was a big ask, especially when Bottas let Hamilton go. It was always going to be a big fight for Leclerc, and it would always be difficult for him to keep the position. Also, Ferrari has definitely improved this season, but not as much that it can go challenging Mercedes. So yeah, he did a good job. He held it up there for so long, but at the end of the day, just one small mistake at Copse and Hamilton was through for the lead.
Yeah. The second DNF of the race happened when Sebastian Vettel, we just had a half spin really. Well, he was trying to get on the power a bit too early as he was fighting with Alonso. Coming out of, was it Copse?
That was Lovefield.
Yeah, coming out of Lovefield. And yeah, got on the power a bit too early, I think, and just spewed off into the grass. Is there anything to be said about that, Siraj?
I think you said it all perfectly. So, like, he was fighting Alonso through Lovefield. I think he was probably trying to get a better exit, just to try get on the power early. That just sent him into a spin, and he couldn't catch it.
Yeah. Anyway, there was pretty big chase going on in the dying laps of the Grand Prix. I mean, like you said, Hamilton overtook Leclerc with 2 laps to go. I'll be honest, that bit, it almost looked like it was going to be another Verstappen-Hamilton incident, but instead,
it honestly did. Yeah.
Yeah, they kept it clean, but then Leclerc, he ran a bit wide, and then there was this massive twitch from him. And I was like, oh no, he's just gonna go spinning away. But yeah, he managed to hold that. But Hamilton managed to just slip it through. I mean, of course, it wasn't the Titanic duel we were expecting. But yeah, it did raise a few hairs, didn't it?
And it was quite scary to look at, especially like when you're on board with Hamilton as he's going to Copse, he puts it down the inside of Leclerc. He'd back off, to be fair to him, and then Leclerc just end up going wide and Hamilton gets the position. Even if you just look straight after that happened, if you just look at the gap he got by the end, like when he got to Stowe, he already had quite a sizable gap to Leclerc, which just showed that how much quicker Hamilton was than Leclerc, and like how much of a good job Leclerc had done at holding Hamilton up.
Yeah. I think another pretty decent performance was by McLaren, who ended up getting P4 and P5 by the checkered flag. I feel like that will definitely help them in their battle with Ferrari. Of course, Ferrari ended up getting P2 and P6, which again is quite an amazing performance. And I don't know about you, but these midfield cars, I feel like they're getting closer to the top teams. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that like Leclerc, I'm quite sure Leclerc most of the races Leclerc is just finding a way to slip near the podium somewhere there, and then Lando is just being Lando and putting the car up there so many times. He's got like 4 podiums this season, and it could well have been 5, and he's just managing to consistently put it up there. Like whenever Perez is not right up there on the podium, and whenever Bottas has a bad race, like there's people like Lando and Leclerc who are always there to capitalize on it.
Yeah. Well, of course, Norris, maybe there was a chance of a podium this race. Had he not had a slow stop, I think it was like 6 seconds. Yeah, it was just a bit slow on the rear, I believe. Is there anything to comment on that, Suraj?
Well, not much, just a mistake on the rear right tyre, and
yeah, I mean, go on.
McLaren, like, they're not known for like bad pit stops as such, so I think it was just like the odd mistake kind of thing you see.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't like Bottas Monaco 2021. Yeah, I mean, mistakes happen, and you can't like immediately take McLaren in the face for that. So yeah, it's P4, which is still a decent result. So I don't think Norris will be complaining too much after that. Yeah, that was the race really. I'd like to talk about Valtteri Bottas for a bit actually. Obviously, got told to let Hamilton through. At lap 48.
I think it was a bit earlier than that. I think it was lap 40, but I'm not too sure.
Yeah, at some point near the end, it was asked to let Hamilton through. Now, I don't know about you, but Bottas is just not.
James.
Yeah, Bottas is just not been on it. Like, he's had some podiums. I mean, he hasn't even won a race so far. Like, even Sergio Perez has done that. Is there any sort of explanation for his like really bad results?
And the only reason I can see that they let Hamilton get past Bottas is just because Hamilton was way quicker. Not just because Hamilton is, as they call, the number 1 driver and Bottas is just the wingman, but also because I think like when they go like lap by lap pace, Hamilton was just quicker, and they thought Bottas won't catch Leclerc as such, but they had faith in Hamilton that he'd be able to catch to him and possibly get a win in front of his home crowd, which he did end up doing.
Yeah, I mean, fair play to Bottas. He didn't just tell the engineer to just beat it and like defend position. He actually got out of the way, which, I mean, Bottas, he's a really great guy, a really great driver. He hasn't had results that Mercedes want out of him. Is there any reason for that?
Well, really not. I think it's just Bottas being boss, and I think he's just like lost it a bit. And you know, they've put so much focus on Hamilton. Hamilton's always getting the good results. You know, he's got wins this year. As you were saying, Bottas has yet to get a win, and it's just recently that he's found some form and got some like consistent podiums. He's really not been able to challenge Hamilton this year, and not even Verstappen for that matter.
Yeah. It's been a bit like Ricciardo this year. I mean, no one can explain why he hasn't been able to get into Q3 consistently. Like when George Russell gets into Q3, and Ricardo can't, like, raises a few questions. I mean, first of all, Ricardo, much more experienced. He's also in a much better car, and when you see where Norris is placing the car and where Ricardo is placing it, like, it raises a few questions. Similarly, Hamilton is usually miles ahead of Bottas on track. Sometimes Bottas is literally outside the points, like the Emilia Romagna Grand Prix, where he was fighting George Russell in the Williams, for God's sake. Which, I mean, come on.
It's a weird thing to say. Mercedes fighting a Williams for position.
Yeah, for position, and for P10 at that. Which, I mean, what did he do to be in that position is what we have to ask. Like, similarly in Azerbaijan, he was like P14, wasn't he?
It was like somewhere way out of the points.
Yeah, and he was like struggling to keep up with Alfa Romeo, which, I mean, it's just humiliating.
Something, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, as we were talking about Russell, as we said, yeah, he got into Q3. I actually had quite a good sprint qualifying race. I think he finished P9 at the end of it. And unfortunately, he had a collision with Sainz on the first lap when he was trying to overtake someone else. I really don't know who it is. But then, unfortunately, for that collision with Sainz, he was hit with a 3-place grid penalty. So he started the actual Grand Prix in 12th, and then he finished 14th. So I think when he started 12th, he just couldn't get himself back up the positions that he needed to.
Yeah, it's like another tantalizingly close to points. Just couldn't get it for George Russell. Yeah, there's nothing really to say about that. I mean, obviously Russell, he could have probably pulled it through for maybe a point or two, but it probably just fell off the cliff when it came to the actual race. Yeah,
And
I mean,
one thing I thought, well, if we go back to qualifying, one thing I actually saw was that, go back a couple of weeks to the Austrian Grand Prix at qualifying, where Russell was P10 in qualifying and then Alonso knocked him out. One thing I found quite funny was that in this Grand Prix during qualifying in Q2, Alonso was in P10, I think, and then Russell ended up knocking him out. I found quite hilarious.
yeah. Well, how the tables turn. Yeah. It's actually quite. I actually noticed that. Yeah. Something. Yeah. Oh well. At least there's that. Well, that was the British Grand Prix weekend, everybody. Any final thoughts, opinions?
Not really. Like, honestly, before the whole weekend, I thought it was going to be quite a boring Grand Prix. You know, I honestly thought Verstappen was just going to win. You know, Hamilton second, Bottas third, kind of thing. Although I did hope for Lando to get on the podium. But yeah, at the end of it, quite an eventful Grand Prix, quite an eventful weekend, and yeah, an enjoyable one to watch, for sure.
I'd just like to point out, saying final thoughts, I'm not trying to copy WTF1 podcast. I literally can't think of anything else to say. And I feel like final thoughts is a good thing to say at this point, so please don't hate me for that.
That's the only thing we can say at that point.
Yeah, please, I'm not trying to be WTF1. Yeah. I guess that wraps up today's episode of the Racing Line podcast. If you did enjoy this episode, then do consider liking the video and subscribing to my channel if you haven't already. Yeah, and this is B1N4G4 out. Goodbye.